Republicans' grasp on the upper crust of American society is beginning to slip, while Democrats are increasingly becoming the preferred party of America's elite. And it could cost them their grip on the White House. Republicans have appealed to America's wealthy with a platform that's long committed itself to lower taxes and fewer regulations for big businesses. However, wealthier Americans are gravitating more toward Democrats, voting blue in the last two presidential elections. And the new appeal to wealthier individuals is creating a divide with a key Democratic voting bloc: blue-collar workers. The trend threatens to widen existing fissures between party moderates and its traditionally lower-earning and more progressive base, potentially threatening Biden's chances for re-election and Democrats' ability to retake the House of Representatives, particularly as working-class voters, including working-class voters of color, begin gravitating toward the GOP. It used to be that the Republican Party was more or less the party of the well-off and affluent. Demographic data compiled in the 2016 and 2020 elections showed that the top 40% of income earners preferred the Democratic candidate for president over the Republican, signifying a sizable coalition shift from where the party was in the previous decade. Recent data shows the trend is likely baked in. In a CNBC survey, America's millionaires said they are more likely to support Biden over Trump in the upcoming presidential election by double-digit margins. And most of the nation's voters are not wealthy. Of the more than 122 million registered voters in the 2020 election, roughly half reported family incomes of less than $100,000 per year, according to 2021 estimates by the Census Bureau. Just under 19.7 million reported household incomes between $100,000 and $150,000. About 23 million had household incomes surpassing $150,000 per year. And that's just those who responded. Some 21 million registered voters declined to report their income. From 2000 to 2017, political donations by CEOs of S&P 500 companies showed a significant preference for Republican candidates, according to a 2019 paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research. Of nearly 8 dozen donations of over $1 million made in the 2016 presidential race, just 18 of them were for Democratic candidates, according to one New York Times review of campaign finance data. A later study found that the proportion of Republican-leaning CEOs had actually increased, from 63% in 2008 to 71% in 2018. 4 years later, however, Democrat Joe Biden benefited from major contributions from affluent donors in industries like big tech and finance. In the final 6 months of his campaign, nearly $200 million of his war chest had come from donors giving 6 figures or more. It was a notable shift for a party counting figures like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, who had long raged against the excesses of the country's wealthiest 1%. But other observers were less than surprised, seeing it as a natural conclusion for a shift in the party's rhetoric that began in the early 1990s. By the 2010s, polling showed Democratic candidates' electoral appeal among affluent voters had reached above majority levels. When voters went to the polls in the 2020 election, Biden would outperform Clinton's performance among the nation's most affluent voters by 6 points and would dominate Trump's returns among upper-middle-class voters by double-digit margins. Historic data shows Democratic presidential administrations typically experience higher S&P 500 averages than Republican administrations. Of the top 10 job-creating presidents in U.S. history, 6 have been Democrats, lending support to the theory Democratic administrations tend to be better for business than Republican ones. However, their party's grassroots tend to support policies that run counter to the interests of the ultra-rich. According to averages of Gallup polling compiled since 2008, approximately 7 in 10 Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents support heavier taxes on the rich, compared to a consistent third or less of Republicans. And that gap among voters has been growing. One American study of the Democratic Party platform cited found that while the platform over the years increased its mentions of welfare policies, other policies like taxes on the rich and higher corporate tax rates have not received similar mention. Even recent progressive initiatives like the COVID-era relief programs are being rolled back under a recently enacted debt ceiling deal between Democrats and Republicans. In other efforts designed to appeal to the rich, Democrats created a sizable rift not just between party moderates and progressives, but between themselves and the working class, who have recently gravitated to the GOP. Other data shows the working class squarely in conservatives' domain as well. Republicans represent 64% of congressional districts with median incomes below the national median, while 9 of the 10 wealthiest congressional districts are represented by Democrats, according to data compiled by Democrats in Ohio. To some degree, the trend is likely explainable in both parties' rhetoric. Democrats used to embrace the working class until they didn't. While many of the people they spoke to initially favored progressive policies such as higher taxes on the rich, a higher minimum wage, and less power for the uber-rich, most outright refused to support Democratic candidates. Invest wisely. And as always, take care of your money.